Hi, second graders. Welcome to day 6 of our place value lessons. Today, our objective is I can compare and order numbers up to 1,000. So let's start with this practice. It says, what is the greatest number that can be made with the digits 1, 2, and 3? So remember, the greatest number means we're looking for the biggest number. So if I'm using the digits 1, 2, and 3 to make the biggest number, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a dash or a line for my hundreds, my tens, and my ones. So I know that I need to make the biggest number. So when I think about that, would I want my 1 in the hundreds, the tens, or the ones place? Well, if I want the biggest number, the greatest number, I want my biggest number to be in my hundreds place. So the 3 digit is going to be the biggest out of 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to put that in my hundreds place. So that means I have the digit 1 and the digit 2 left. If I want it to be the greatest, that means I need to put my next biggest number in my next biggest place value. So that means my 2 will go on my tens, and that leaves me with my 1 and my ones. So the greatest number that I can create out of the digits 1, 2, and 3 would be 321. So our greatest number was 321. Next, we want to know what is the smallest and the greatest 3-digit number. So just in general, what would be the smallest 3-digit number that you could create, and what would be the greatest or the biggest 3-digit number that you can create? Now remember, can a number start with a 0? No, so we have to keep that in mind when we're doing this. So now if I want to create both the greatest and the least, or the biggest and the smallest 3-digit numbers, I'm going to go ahead and put my lines. So I know each one is going to have a hundreds, tens, and a ones, because that's a 3-digit number. They have hundreds, tens, and ones. So if I want to say this is the greatest, and then this one will be the least. So if I want to create a number as big as possible, I'm going to think about which digit is worth the most. Well, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the digit 9 is worth the most. So I'm going to want that to be in my hundreds place. But then in my tens place, I still want the greatest digit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put a 9 in my tens place too. And in my ones place, I still want the greatest digit that's possible. So the greatest 3-digit number that I can create would be 999. So now let's think about the smallest 3-digit number. When I think about my digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, well, 0's the smallest digit. But if I have a 0 here, would I have a 3-digit number? No. So I can't have a 0 in the hundreds place. So what's my next smallest digit that I could put there? It would be a 1. So then thinking about my tens, what's the smallest digit that I could put there? Well, I could put a 0 in my tens place. I could also put a 0 in my ones place. So 100 would be the smallest 3-digit number that I could create. So we found that our smallest 3-digit number was 100, and our greatest 3-digit number was 999. So now we want to try and find what are all the 3-digit numbers that can be made from the digits 4, 5, and 6. So after we find all of our 3-digit numbers that we can create, we're going to circle which one is the least or the smallest, and we're also going to circle which one is the greatest or the biggest. So now we're thinking about all of the numbers that I can create with the digits 4, 5, and 6. And remember that I want them to be all 3-digit numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the 4 in the hundreds place. So if I have 4 in the hundreds place, that means I could have 5 in the tens and 6 in the ones. Or if I have my 4 in the hundreds place, I could have my 6 in the tens and my 5 in the ones. All right, so now I did my 4 as the hundreds, so I'm going to put a little check mark. Now let's do my 5 in the hundreds. If I have my 5 in the hundreds, I could have my 4 in the tens, 6 in the ones. Or if I have my 5 in the hundreds, I could have my 6 in the tens and my 4 in the ones. Now last, let's do the 6 in the hundreds place. So now I have my 600s. So I can do the 4 in the tens, 5 in the ones. Or my 6 in the hundreds, I could do my 5 in the tens and the 4 in the ones. So these are all the different numbers that I can create with a 3-digit number with the digits 4, 5, and 6. But now I want to know which one's the greatest and which one is the least. So if I'm thinking about the greatest number, do I want to look at my 400s, my 500s, or my 600s? Well, if I'm looking for the greatest, I want the 600. So I'm going to compare this number, 645, to this number, 654. So if my hundreds are the same, then remember I go to my tens. This one has 4 tens. This one has 5 tens. So which one's greater? 654. Now let's look at what number is the least or the smallest. I know I don't want to look at the 600s because those were the biggest. So I can look at my 500s or my 400s. Well, 4 is less than 5, so I'm going to look between these two numbers to figure out which one's the least. So I have 456 or 465. Again, my hundreds are the same, so I'm going to look at the tens. This one has 5 tens. This one has 6 tens, and because I'm looking for the least, I'm looking for the smallest number. 5 is smaller, so 456 would be the smallest number. Right now, we're just going to look at a couple numbers and decide which is greater. Remember before when we were using that greater than or less than sign? We're going to do that. And so remember, there's a couple different ways to do this. If you want, if it's easier for you, you can stack the numbers one on top of the other. So you have your hundreds, your tens, and your ones lined up. Or you can just look at them. So when I'm comparing 361 to 458, I'm going to start by looking at my hundreds. This number has 3 hundreds. This number has 4 hundreds. So I immediately know which number is bigger. If there are 4 hundreds compared to 3 hundreds, I know that 458 is bigger. So I'm going to make my greater than sign. So it is facing my 458. So I would read this as 361 is less than 458. Let's try another one. I want you to try this one. You are going to compare 847 to 841. So on your paper, go ahead and write those two numbers. And then you're going to put in the greater than or less than sign. So hopefully you started by looking at the hundreds. This one has 800s. This one has 800s. So then you had to move to the tens. This one has 4 tens. This one has 4 tens. So then we had to look all the way down at the ones. This number has 7 ones. This number has 1 1. So we finally know which one is bigger. The one with 7 ones is bigger. So hopefully you have your sign opening up to the bigger number. And we would read this as 847 is greater than or bigger than 841. So now let's compare which number is greater. So I have the 600 plus 40 and I have 604. Well, I know that 604 is written in standard form, but 600 plus 40, that's written in expanded form. And that's kind of hard for me to compare those two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instead take this 600 plus 40 and write it in standard form so it's easier for me to compare. So this 600 plus 40, I know is actually 640 because I have 600s, 4 10s, and no 1s. So now I'm comparing 640 to 604. Well, if I start by looking at my hundreds, 604 has 600, 640 has 600s. So let's go down to the tens. Now my 640 has 4 10s, my 604 has 0 10s. I know that 4 10s is bigger than 0 10s. So when I write my greater than or less than sign, I have it opening up towards the 640 because that is the bigger number. So we would read this as 640 is greater than 604. So now let's look at my 65 tens or 65. Which one would be greater? Well, when I think about 65 tens, if I think about drawing that out or using my base 10 blocks, I'm going to be counting 65 of those tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. I'll be counting forever. I know that 65 tens is actually 650. So now when I'm comparing 650 to 65, let's start by looking at my hundreds place. 650 has 6 hundreds. Are there any hundreds in 65? No, this 6, the biggest place value is just in the tens. So I know that because this number has hundreds, this number is bigger. So I know that 65 tens, which is actually equal to 650, is greater than 65. All right, are you ready for your turn? Now we can see we're comparing two numbers that are both in expanded form this time. So what I want you to do is take each number, this one and this one, write it in the standard form, and then write in your greater than or less than sign. Right, so hopefully when you wrote it in standard form, did you get that this one was equal to 533, 5 hundreds, 3 tens, 3 ones? Did you get this side is equal to 533 also? 3 ones, 5 hundreds, 3 tens. They were just mixed around in order. So 533, 533. Same number of hundreds, same number of tens, same number of ones. So these two are equal. All right, now let's try another one. Now I have 4 hundreds, 8 ones, or I have 480 ones. Go ahead and write these numbers in standard form. What would they look like? So for this one, I'm picturing my base 10 blocks. So I would get 4 hundreds, and then I would get 8 ones. For this one, it's 480 ones. Wait a minute. I know 100 ones is equal to 100. So 480 ones. All right. So for this one, did you do your 400s and your 8 ones? So hopefully your standard form of the number looked like this, 408. And your 481s, well, that's just 480. Think of all those little ones, base 10 blocks. If you spread those out and made groups of 10s and groups of 100, it would be 480. Right now, add in your greater than or less than sign. Which number is greater or bigger? All right, you started by looking in the hundreds. Both had 4. Now let's go to the 10s. This one doesn't have any 10s. This one has 8 10s. So we know, wait a minute, that's not right. Are they equal? No, this should be a sign opening up to 480. So it should read that 400s, 8 ones is less than 481s. Now you are going to arrange these numbers in order. So you're going to begin with the smallest and then move on to the bigger and bigger to the biggest. So go ahead and take a minute and try it and see if you can arrange these numbers in order from smallest to biggest. If you need to pause the video, if you need more time, go ahead and do that. And then when you're ready, start the video again so that you can see if you got your answer correct. So remember, when we are arranging numbers, we start by looking at the biggest place value. And the biggest place value we have in these numbers is the hundreds. So we're going to start by looking at the hundreds place. So I see we have 300s, 400, 400s, and 300s. So we're going to start by looking at the numbers that have the 3 and the hundreds, because I know 300s is smaller than 400s. So because these two both have the 3 in the hundreds, my tens place. So this number, 364, has a 6 in the tens. 346 has a 4 in the tens. So I know 4 is smaller than 6. So my smallest number is going to be 346. And I like to cross it off after I've used it so that I don't get confused. So then I know my next smallest would be my 364, because remember my other two had 400s. All right, so now I'm going to look at my two numbers that had the 4 in the hundreds. They both have the 4, so I'm going to look at the tens place. 436 has a 3 in the tens, and 463 has a 6 in the tens. So remember, I'm going from smallest to biggest, so I want the smaller number. So that means my 3 in the tens is smaller. So I'm going to take my 436, and that's going to go next. And then last, I'm going to have my biggest number, which is the 463. And now what I can do is I can add in my greater than and less than signs so that it really looks like a true number sentence. So when I read this, it's going to be 346 is less than 364, which is less than 436, which is less than 463. All right, so now you're going to move on to your independent practice, and you are going to have a quiz in Edgenuity. And your numbers may be different. They may go in a different order, but I'll kind of go over what each one is. So this first one, it says which numbers are greater than 438. So you're going to check mark any numbers that are more than 438. And there could be more than one. The next one, it says what is the smallest number you can make with the digits 5, 1, and 3. So figure out which number is the smallest. You might want to do what we did when we were practicing, where we list all the different numbers you can create, and then you find the smallest. Number 3, it says which number is the greatest. So you're going to click which number is the biggest number. Next, it says fill in the blank, 813 blank 800 plus 30 plus 1. So remember, when we do this, I like to turn this expanded form into a standard number because then it's easier to compare. And then the last one, what is the greatest number you can make with the digits 5, 1, and 3? So just like over here, you found the smallest, over here you're going to find the greatest or the biggest.